What's up, people? I'm so excited to tell you about NordVPN, okay? Because I travel all the time, whether it's on a cruise ship, another country, a military base. And now sometimes I can't watch the UFC because where I'm at doesn't have it. Well, now I can because NordVPN makes it so that I can watch the UFC from different territories via streaming. It lets you change your computer's location to come from anywhere in the world. How cool is that? You might be wondering, what's a VPN? Okay, I know I was. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. And it's a service that protects your internet connection and privacy online. It creates an encrypted tunnel for your data. It protects your online identity by hiding your IP address. It allows you to use public Wi-Fi hotspots safely. Yes, so no one will track you or hack you, yada, yada. No one likes to be watched or tracked. I don't. Even if you have nothing to hide, still, we want our privacy, which is why it's important to step up your privacy game. Whether you're browsing through a VPN, when you are doing that, okay, your traffic is encrypted so that no one can see what you're doing online, all right? I know a lot of our listeners like to, be private. I've met some of you guys, and I can understand why. Here are a few reasons why you need a VPN, okay? Use public Wi-Fi regularly. You want to access your content. You want to stay safer online, and you're an avid gamer. So you get your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/roasted. You can get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 months for free. That's the best deal ever, right? It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. I am so pumped because now I can watch the fights from wherever I am. Because so many times I'm like trying to watch the fights and I'm like, it's the most frustrating thing ever. Well, now my life is going to change thanks to NordVPN. NordVPN, check it out. Highly recommend. You'll be thanking me later.
Let me bang. I do let you bang. Hey, let me bang you, man. I let you bang. I let you bang. Greetings, marriage and virgins.
Go for Jesus. No forget Jesus, people.
And I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time once again for your favorite mixed martial arts podcast. Recording out of Los Angeles, California, it's MMA Roasted with Adam Hunter.
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
What's up, people? Welcome to the brand new MMA Roasted Podcast. We got a special show because this man is one of my favorite athletes, favorite wrestlers, favorite personalities, favorite fighters, and now has one of my favorite books I've ever read. I don't read that many books. But you actually wrote, but you wrote on the inside, thanks, Adam. I love what you do for wrestling. I love your jokes. I'm like, all right, if this guy's going to personally write me a book, I gotta read it.
I don't know if I said I loved your jokes. I don't know about that.
Okay.
Because I saw you made a joke. Listen, I had someone literally Adam, the other day. I was on the phone with you. You and I talked on the phone. And while I'm talking on the phone, someone texts me. And it's you giving me shit about the guy Zion who's fighting with no legs. You say
well, because I was reading your book and you said that like how thick your skin is and how you like don't let shit get to you. So I'm like, and there are very few people like that.
It's true.
So I'm like, and you're one of those people. I'm like, well, I figured you would laugh at that joke. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna. And by the way, the person sending you that stuff to give you shit is kind of a jerk too, because it's like, hey, here's a joke about you. Your book was amazing, though, man.
So funny, right?
Really good read.
Thank you.
And tell me, like, when did you even write this book?
Well, so the thing was coronavirus happened, all of our academies got shut down, and I got to do something with my life. I can't do nothing. I go crazy. So it was like, okay, what projects can I start doing, and I started like trying to make a list of like, all right, well, I'm not going to be coaching wrestling for a few months and I can't do anything else, so maybe here's some shit I can do. So with the book, I knew if I wrote it myself, I would be so unhappy with it that it would never get published. So I hit up this writer, Chuck Mindenhall, who is my favorite MMA writer. And I said, hey, what would you like to do a project with me? And he said, sure. And so me and Chuck started working on it. I actually figured it would take like 6 months. And it ended up taking damn near 2 years to get it done. So it's really funny because through the book, there's like some things that we wrote. I mean, for example, like a lot of the book was done when the Jake Paul fight happened, so that was like that's then an epilogue, not part of the story. But yeah, some things that happened, which now they sound funny after the fact, but when I was writing them, they would have made more sense.
Well, the book's called Funky, by the way, My Defiant Path Through the Wild World of Combat Sports. You should definitely pick it up. It's on Kindle. You can buy a hard copy. You could audiobook.
My wife just started listening to the audiobook. She said that was out there. That was hard. I don't know if you've ever read an audiobook. I know you've done a lot of things, Adam.
Yeah.
Dude, the audiobook was brutal. It was so hard for me.
Well, it's funny because I just feel like I know you a lot better. I also feel, thanks to you, I think I also have Asperger's. So if you think you might have Asperger's,
yeah, there we go.
And my wife agrees, by the way. So she got mad at me a couple times, and I told her, I'm like, I have Asperger's. You can't get mad at me for this.
I can't help it. Yeah.
It's a great excuse, which lasted for about 2 days, by the way. But I think you say you might have Asperger's because you're bad with eye contact, and that you're really good at one specific thing, and then you also
specified interests.
Yeah.
Overly physical. Don't understand normal jokes. Hate the small talk with people who don't have shared interests with me. I check a lot of the boxes.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. And I'm like, man, it's great. Because I actually asked my therapist. I'm reading this book. I have a lot in common with this guy. And my therapist said that I am neurodivergent. So I don't think she said that I'm somewhere in there. But it's crazy, man, because
neurodivergent. I've never heard that term, Adam.
Yeah.
I gotta look it up.
She says I'm neurodivergent, so which is crazy. Now, I'm going to ask you questions all out of sequence, but before your Masvidal fight, you couldn't lift your leg. You couldn't lift your left leg.
No, I could lift my leg. I couldn't bring my knee above my hip. Right, so I couldn't bring you got to imagine you're like, I could stand up right now. Well, I'll stand up. Hold on, make sure I pull my cord out. Right. So you stand up. Okay. Right here, you should be able to lift. You should be able to lift your leg. Like, see, like I can bring it way up high, right? Significantly past my hip, but I couldn't bring it past here. Right. And that was like when I'm trying to throw kicks, I was saying, and when I would go to Singapore and the Thai trainers who didn't understand English, and they at the end of every round, they try to say like 20 kicks here, 20 kicks there. And I couldn't throw the kicks with my left leg because I couldn't get the leg up high enough. Because I had bone spurs. That was a big issue. I don't have that in my right hip at all.
So you're fighting a guy who's a kickboxer.
Yeah, so it's a bone spur.
And you can't lift your leg. So any kick to the head, so you wouldn't be able to check a kick. Basically, you could check it, unless if it was above here, you'd be fucked.
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I know people are going to say I don't have kickboxing skills, but like, oh, geez, now I'm going to break my TV. Now you got me standing up a whole bunch. When you check a kick, right? A low kick, you're going to check here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I got to bring a low kick, you're going to check, there.
Yeah.
High kick, you're obviously going to have some defense up here. And then, yes, there is a little space in between where if they want medium, high, right, you need to like connect these things to connect the shield, So, yeah, there would have been a little spot to the body open on that side, but I led with that side, so it's hard to body kick someone's lead side. Usually.
And you also couldn't run.
Open side
couldn't run before the fight either. You couldn't do any cardio.
It was a very pitiful jog. So no, I tried to. I did some rowing. Bike was actually the thing that I could do the most of because a bike you'll need to.
Yeah, but you're not on a bike race. You're fighting a guy who's a dangerous. Yeah. So basically, you can't run. You can't move your leg.
And I still want to fight him.
And you
I was just listen. Can I?
And you did no sparring.
I feel like we're cutting each other off.
Yeah,
I'm
because the sign. And you did no sparring either. You said you made a decision on the plane.
No, I sparred that fight.
Oh, you did spar for that fight? Because
so it's 2016. Now we're all over the place. April 2016, I watched Concussion on the way to my fight. Yeah, and I think, oh man, like the science is kind of settled on this. I probably shouldn't be. I probably shouldn't be fighting in general. But if I am going to fight, I should probably maybe limit the head trauma. So I decided, okay, I'm going to stop sparring. So I didn't spar for the last, was it year and a half of before my first retirement, and so then I didn't spar at all, zero. And then I retired and I obviously didn't spar. And during that retirement, I kept reading on CTE because I'm curious of it. And I actually think, I don't like the way, I don't say a diagnosis is the proper terminology because they don't do it till after you're dead. But I read this one study, and this one study made me think, okay, this is kind of a load of bullshit. And then so when I came back, I sparred one time a week, which is that's kind of normal, right? We usually did, early in my career, we did one hard spar and one light spar generally.
Yeah.
But the study I read, Adam, it said this. It said, of anyone who's played 1 year, singular, 1 year of high school football, it's an 87% chance they have CTE. Right. And then it said anyone who's played more than 1 year, there's a 99% chance. And so the way my brain thought about this is, okay, that's preposterous, because if you think of like the generation above us, man, 90% of those men played football in high school. So you're telling me like 99% of 99 men or 99% of 90% of the men have CTE? Like that's just not happening. Like you look at the older generation, and obviously there's some slowdowns and stuff, but they're not all walking around like that. Like, give me a break.
Well, I know you don't like to make excuses, so I'll make them for you. If you didn't have a hip surgery,
I'm trying to cut off your excuses. Cut it off.
Okay, I know you know.
I should have beat up George Masvidal and not got kneed in the head.
You'd be able to get out of the way because you would have gotten out of the way if you could move your hip of that flying knee. That's
okay. I love it.
That's one thing that I got. Now, first of all, I didn't realize you were a fat kid. You were like 200 pounds when you were 10.
Yeah.
You were 135.
No, 200. Stop. I was 135. 135.
Then you start wrestling. You said, I'm giving up on soda. I'm getting in shape. And this is like when you were in middle school. And you said you've not drinking soda since.
I was 11. So it was sixth grade. Yeah. So sixth grade. So I had wrestled before that, but it was where I wanted to get better at wrestling. And I just knew kind of like being fat like that was not beneficial. Yeah. So I gave up a lot of things. Soda being one of them. Some of the things never came back, right? So like I gave up soda. I still don't drink soda. I think it's gross. I gave up fast food. I still don't really eat fast food. I think it's pretty gross. But then there's things like I stopped eating ice cream, and then like I eat ice cream now. I freaking love ice cream, So there's a lot of things that I gave up that never came back. And I didn't get back to 130 pounds until what was it? I think my sophomore year of high school. I wrestled 130 pounds in the state tournament.
And in high school, you were great. I mean, you don't think you were great, which we'll get into later, because you think that the best guys never think they're great, which is one of the craziest studies I've ever heard, which I love that part. But you were...
I was actually going to do my Mental Monday about that this week, and then I forgot to do it on Monday, and I forgot to do it on Tuesday, so I'm going to save next Monday. I'm going to talk about that. You want to talk about that right now? Because I think it is fascinating.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, and like I said, because I tried writing a book in college with a sports psych PhD named Renee Mapes, and she was great. But we put out this survey essentially to the Division I and state champions of the past 50 years, which is 3% of people move from high school wrestling to college wrestling. 1%, less than 1% of them make Division I college wrestling. And then of those Division I college wrestlers, it's like 0.001% of them who already made Division I then win a national title. So if we're like talking statistically speaking, the people who win Division I national titles are great. Absolutely. There's no way we have to define it. They are probably even a couple steps below them. So one of the questions that really shocked me was, one of the questions we asked was, when did you go from good to great? And what we were expecting to get back was, I didn't believe in myself, and then this coach said something and I believed in myself. Or I beat this guy, and then that gave me some confidence. Or I learned this new skill set, or I started training differently. We expected something this is what we were looking for, right? Mental shifts. And what we got back was insane. So we sent like 330 questionnaires out, and we got, I think it was like 120 back. And such a high percentage had some form of, I was never great. And so, like I said, if we're talking percentages, like these people have to be great. They literally do. Yeah. But it would be like, your question assumes I was great. I never was great, but something else. Or Dan Gable was great. I was not great, but and there was just a whole bunch of these ones. And, it was like guys who are winning multiple NCAA titles, guys who won world titles. They're saying, I was never great, And then so from that became a realization. And then obviously they generally wrote a little more than that, one of the reasons they actually were great was because they never really thought in those terms, right? They thought in terms of, how do I get better at this? I like this activity. I want to win. I like it. I want to get better. How do I get better? And they just kept getting better. So we called that concept, and this is not one we made up, right? This is from somewhere else. We call it beginner's mind. So just that notion that you can always get better. You're always looking for more. And generally, and I see this, well, you coach middle school, so maybe you can speak to this too. You see a kid and they're like, oh, I know this, I know that. You can't tell me anything. Like it's almost guaranteed that kid will not get better. They're done. Like wherever they're at, that's it.
Yeah, same thing with comedy. I mean, if I don't write jokes, I'm done. If I don't write more jokes, I'm done. I'm only as good as I'm going to be at that particular point. In fact, I'm getting worse. Because nothing
getting worse
because nothing's new.
Everyone else is continuing to develop.
Yeah. So and it's just, in fact, I'll be on stage sometimes like killing, mad at myself because I didn't write anything new. Like I'm actually not enjoying doing well because in my mind, I know that there's nothing new coming out. Like I'm not getting any better. Everyone else is enjoying this except for me on stage telling the joke. And I think that, that with especially, I find with women, especially coaching girl wrestling, you almost never have that problem.
Yeah.
Because women are always, you have to build them up. Girls never think they're good enough and they want to focus on technique. The boys are like, oh, well, I know a cradle. What do I need? I don't need to know any more moves, or I don't know. Which is
so I generally find, I don't know, maybe we'll just talk wrestling coaching. So I generally find we have like some young kids like that, like we call them ninjas in training. So we have a 5-year-old class, a 6-7-year-old class, an 8-9-year-old class. And we'll get some 8-9-year-olds who are like that and they'll think they know a lot. And then the second we bump them up and then they start taking some ass whippings from the older kids, they're like, I got it.
Yeah, no.
And then usually once that happens, then they're generally good for a while.
Yeah, I mean, but you're right as far as it's a lot of it is like the parent. I had to get a kid off. I had to almost ask kid not to come back because he was just doing jiu-jitsu moves and choking kids out and laughing about it. And I had to, and then
what?
Yeah,
that's illegal.
Right. And then he was like not hitting on girls, making faces at girls. So because the girls were beating him. So I brought the parents in and they were like, Mike, well, he has ADHD and you need to learn how to deal with that. Like it was my fault. And I'm like, okay.
Dang, that's crazy. Freaking parents.
Now as far as your wrestling, which is crazy because you were great. I mean, you weren't great, but you were amazing in high school. You were a Fargo national champion. You didn't win the state senior year, but you won the nationals, which is also,
Well, I got hurt. I would have won state pretty easy.
Got it. Okay. So you win the nationals, you get to college, they redshirt you, you go, I don't know, you're not 0-something. You won a lot, but you lost about 10 matches. You said about 10. And then you figure out
my redshirt year. Yep.
Then you figure out somehow, like, look, I'm not bigger, I'm not faster, I'm not stronger than these guys. I can't play their game. I have to invent a game that they have to play. And you start doing your own funky style of wrestling, which to me is insanity. I mean, to me, that's like reinventing the wheel. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. Do you?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you got to start somewhere, right? Right. Yeah. That's the thing about it is like, it's not like I went from zero to finished product. It was just, that my redshirt freshman year, I'm taking all these losses and it sucks. And it's like, oh man, well, how the freak can I do this? And I did have one I mentioned him in the book, Mike Ironman. And he had a couple things. But then, we talked about this on the phone. It wasn't like I made a lot of things up didn't make everything up. Right. There was some one of my specialties was tying things together. Right. So, and this sucked because in this era, you couldn't watch wrestling on a computer, right? You couldn't go watch the best guys. You couldn't stream it. Like you had to go find DVD. This is 2000, my freshman year, 2002, 2003, right? There's no internet wrestling. So you got to find DVDs and stuff or literally watch the matches live. And so it was like watching the matches live. And then when you watch them live, you don't get a replay, right? So you watch it live and you're like, wait, oh, wow, that's really cool. Like, I think I can do that, And so you take this one thing from over here and you take this one thing from over here and then and you start pulling like these techniques in, right? And it's like, for me, it's like a constant puzzle of like, How do all these things fit together? And is the option I'm making always the best option? And that's where a lot of kids, they accept the first thing. And, this is kind of like, it's a good and bad, because we were talking about listening to your coaches earlier, right? But you listen, your coach says, hey, this is the way you do it. And they never, ever question it. And they never say, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or, hey, when I do that thing you're telling me to do, I got taken down 10 times out of 10. Like some kid told me something last night and I said, okay, well, someone else told you that worked, but let me ask you a question. How many times has someone done that to you? And they're like, never. I'm like, well, then why would you assume that that's actually going to work? If someone never can do that to you, why would then you take someone's word for it that's going to work? It doesn't make sense, So like being like really like, discerning of what works and what doesn't work. And like based on real data, I think a lot of people have an issue with this because it takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of like thinking about your wrestling, thinking about what happened. And this is life too, right? What happened? What was good about it? What was bad about it? How do I keep the good things and eliminate the bad things? And even the good things, could I have done something better? And how do I do it better? So that's kind of like, and so even when if I watched myself my senior year of college versus my freshman year, it's like there's just such a difference. It's radically different because the process evolved so fast. And now we're 15 years out of my college career, and it's like I was just telling someone last night, it's this scramble I was doing. I do this way differently than I did when I graduated college because wrestling has evolved at such a rapid rate. Because now everyone has access to all the matches. We can all watch what everyone's doing. So wrestling is moving like boom.
But initially, though, right? Initially, because you were so good at scrambling, and you were so good at like I've had a couple kids like you, and the problem I think what you're saying for me at least from a coach standpoint is that kids are like, well, what about this? I'm like, well, at least get this first. Know how to do it the right way first, and then let's work on this, because they're trying it right off the bat. Well, what about this? I'm like, but you don't have the right way to do it. So now I can't focus on this the other way.
Yeah. No, I think you are right on that. I think that kids do have to have a solid base. And my brother and I debate this a lot. Like, I don't really teach scrambling barely at all to our really anything under high school. We don't teach much because there has to be a foundation of which to build everything else on, so there's this foundation, then you can start building off that. But I'll give you Keegan O'Toole, the kid who he won a national title for Mizzou last year. He's one of our guys. And there was times it's like, listen, I am like the foremost expert in this area of wrestling, And there was one time where it's him, and there are two other kids, Jared Krediger and Peyton Maka, who claimed it was their invention also. So I'll say one of these three, but Keegan was the one that pushed back the most. He did something. I said, stop doing it that way. That's wrong. And he's like, nah, I think it's right. And I'm like, I don't think it is. I think it's wrong. But if you think it's right, go ahead and do it and tell me what the results are,
Right.
And dude, sure enough, it became like a thing. And I came to the point, I'm like, you know what? I was wrong. You guys were right. So I actually really like a little pushback, not from the little kids. If you get to be a pretty good high school wrestler, and you're like, and I can tell you're intelligent, I can tell you're thinking on a high level, I want some pushback, because that means you're considering everything that's happening, and we can then have a discussion about it, and we can come up with the best solution for you, because the best solution isn't the same for everybody based on height, weight. Right. Flexibility is a huge one. Some of these kids got like look at my shoulders. I can't move over my head. Some of these kids could put this elbow on that shoulder. You probably can't. You look like a Gumby guy. Can you put your elbow?
I don't know. Maybe.
No, not really. You're getting old. Can't do it.
I'm 44. But how did you do that? Like, how exactly? Okay, so you shoot a single leg. All right. Everyone, like Ben Askren. So you're in the wrestling room.
Yes.
You shoot a single leg. You got the leg on it. Got the foot under here. Everyone else is like, trip or whatever you're gonna do. You got it up. Now, are you that going, okay, well, if I do a somersault to get, he's going to do this, and then I can catch him there, and then that'll pin him. Yeah. Is that what you're doing? You're like, what does this guy not want to do? Is that essentially?
Yeah.
What's up, people? BetOnline.ag. Basketball is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. And as your continued source for sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events. You can bet the NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure you use the promo code CLNS50 to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. Check it out.
So you're doing
That's it. It's like,
yeah, go on.
not the wrong way. It's like, right, because at this point I'm at a relatively high level of skill. And so it's like, okay, I'll give you a great example. Someone has a single leg and they got their hands locked, right? And they start pulling you in with their back. You can't stop them. You can't stop them. And if that's where someone who only understands the basics and only wants to stick traditional and say sprawl. And I could tell you, if I have your leg and you try sprawling on me, you're not going to sprawl. I'm going to pull your leg in. Literally 100. I have never met a leg I haven't pulled in. Literally 100 times, I will pull in your leg. Okay? That's obviously given we're the same weight class and we're wrestling a match. I will pull in your leg. Right. Maybe even heavyweights. I mean, I pulled in Mark Ellis's leg and he was a heavyweight. I will pull in your leg. A sprawl will not work, right? At that point in time. So at that point in time, that's where you need to say, okay, well, if a sprawl isn't going to work, I have two options. Number one, I give up and I let them win, right? That's one option. Okay. And the number two option will be figure something out. And that was what I did. I figured something out, right? So in the very beginning, like it was far ankle scramble. So when they start pulling me in and I can't sprawl, I jump over the top and attack the ankles. Then it was the trail position where I'm attacking the cradles. And, so obviously there's, I always say there's so many moves that died on the wrestling mats that never made it under the lights. There's so many moves that I tried. I thought, oh, maybe this will be the thing. And I tried. I'm like, oh, that was dog shit. What was I thinking? What was I thinking?
Right.
That was terrible. All right, garbage. It's gone. Try the next thing. Oh, that's dog shit. Garbage. It's gone. Try the next thing. And so, I think something that maybe would a little bit define me later in my career is lack of ego. And that's what this is. It's a lack of ego because you have to be willing to say, I'm going to try this. And it didn't work. I was wrong. Right. Or, right, if you have a big ego, you're going to say, I'm going to try this. And despite what the outcome is, I'm going to act like I'm right. I'm going to tell everyone I'm right. And I'm only going to point to the instances where I get it. And I'm not going to point to any of the instances where it failed. And so from an analytical standpoint on positions, I always tell kids, and this is probably super autistic, but I tell kids from an analytical standpoint, look at it from a percentage basis. And this is hard because they don't have actual statistics. But if you do this, are you going to win 70% of the time? Are they going to win 30% of the time? Is it going to be 60, 20, and 20% stalemate? What is going to actually happen? And then your goal should be to constantly increase your percentage winning. So when I get to certain positions, it's like, I'm going to win 100% of the time. I will 100% here against anyone my size, my weight, right? I'm going to win. So get to that position, right? So you go from the 60% to the 80% to the 90% to the 100%. Now you're somewhere you're going to win every time.
Now, when you were in practice, were you always like, okay, we'll take that example of like, you got the guy's leg, he's going to sprawl, or if someone has your leg, the thing to do is to dive for the far ankle. Were you constantly starting from that position and then going live?
It was okay. Well, so I mean, obviously, I have to be as productive as possible. You must do a little bit of different things, right? So some days, I'm just trying to win as much as I can, which means I'm trying to choose my best option every single time. Okay. Every single time from that percentage thought process, I'm trying to do the very, very best that I can. That's it. Right. Okay. Now the problem with that thought process, if we do it all the time, is if I'm only choosing my best option every time, I can never create any new options. Right. Therefore, as you talked about earlier with your jokes, you're stuck exactly where you're at, because if you get good at something, okay, let's go back to the basics. Get good at, this should go on some wrestling channel. This is a tremendous wrestling discussion, Adam. Say you're great at single leg.
Yeah.
Okay. And you shoot a single leg. We'll say you're 90%. You're going to score a single leg 90% of the time. You shoot it. Okay. So some practice is you're trying to beat the guy. Shoot that single leg every single time. You score 90% of the time. You kill him. Boom. Great. Right. Okay. Well, now you wrestled your freshman year and everyone knows Adam Hunter can only shoot a single leg to his right-hand side. Okay. Right. Now they all know what you're coming. Right. So if you continue that, everyone's going to scout you. They know. So now in practice, you guys start shooting high cross to the other side. Okay, well, when you start shooting the high crotch for the first time, you're not going to be 90%. You're
No.
probably going to be like 20%, you know? And so, but you're going to have a lot of those practices where you're taking I call it a suboptimal result, right? And a result that's less than what you want. And then a week later, you're 40%. And a week later, you're 50%. And a week, right? And now by 6 weeks into it, maybe it's probably gonna take a little longer than that, but we're speeding it up. You're 90% on your single leg here, and you're 90% on your high crotch there. Boom! Now you got two great options, right? So now when you have that optimal practice, you can do them both. And now your opponent, they have to stay guessing. Right before, they knew you were only gonna shoot a single leg here, and they could predict it. Now you can go both ways, right? And now you probably want to add like a snap down, because now they get low because they know you're gonna shoot. Well, now you got to be able to bring them down, snap them down, right? This is life, right? You got to be able to constantly have options, because if everyone can predict everything you're going to do, you're not going to be good at it.
Of course. No, I had a kid one time. This kid Ari.
Probably why I should have punched George Masvidal before I double legged him.
Now I had a kid Ari one time. He was only doing
worked out
funk.
much better.
I had a kid one time always doing funk. This kid was like, and it was hard to coach him because I'm like, if I tell him what to do the right way, he's gonna. Versus like in matches, if I let him do what he's gonna do, he's gonna end up winning most of the time. But I told him, I said, you're gonna get to a certain level. Yeah. You get to a certain level where this is not gonna work anymore. You know, these reach backs, things that you're doing, you know, you're reaching, you know, you're on bottom and you're reaching back, or you're, you know, putting your leg. I go, and eventually the better kids would catch him. How did you get? And how did you get?
I mean, that's obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, keep going. Sorry.
How did you get to a point where your stuff was working on the better kids?
Trial and error. And I was very willing to have the self-awareness to say that didn't work. I'm not doing that. Right. Where a lot of these kids, and because I do a funky fresh scrambling camp, me and my brother, where we do only scrambling for a whole week. And there are so many kids who come in and they say, well, this is all I do. And I think, no, this is not all you should do. That is effing stupid. Like if a sprawl is the best option, we're going to do a sprawl, right? A lot of kids who want to scramble, they don't know how to shoot, right? In order to be a good wrestler, you probably need some offense. You probably need to be able to go attack them. So, you know, my tactic with kids I coach, and I can't say I have a ton of this problem, because I feel like the kids trust us now after the results that we're producing. But it's like you must wait for a moment of weakness when they lose and they're sad and they didn't want to lose and they're really heartbroken. And now what you can't do as a coach, you want to do it. I told you so. I told you, little ass, that wasn't going to work. Effing listen to me now. Can't do that though. That's what you want to do, right? That's what you want to party on them a little bit. But you have to say, listen, man, hey, you and me, we got the same goals. I want you to be good. You want to be good. Now, can you please make recognition of how the mindset you were using, the tactics, didn't work? You just got pinned because you wanted to try that bullshit that you keep saying works. Well, it didn't work. You got pinned. So how about we go do a single leg? How about that? You know, something to that effect. You know, really, once they know you care about them, you could probably say things even a little more aggressively.
I told the kid one time,
and that's good.
Really bad. I told him one time, I said, hey man, see how bad this feels? You don't want this again. So let's work on. I go, remember this, and use this to motivate you to work harder. You know, that's kind of how I. Yeah. You know.
No, that's good. I mean, yeah, you gotta get them feeling like you're on their side, and that you obviously want what's best for them, which is, you know, if you're coaching wrestling, it's most likely true, and that you're not there to beat on your chest and have a gigantic ego. And I know that's unfortunately that's how some coaches, not the good ones, the bad ones, generally act like that.
Now, what I also found, so many things in your book were crazy. The fact that you were on message boards at an early age.
You remember those?
I kind of do, but you were trolling adults. So there were all these adults.
Yes.
And you were in high school and you were saying Ben Askren is going to be the best wrestler ever. He'll beat everybody, and pissing these people off. Did they know it was you?
Yeah, I put my name on there.
Oh, so you weren't going as like a fake name. You were going as Ben Askren.
Yeah. Put my name on there.
Oh, wow. And then,
that's telling exactly what it was.
So you're fighting with adults, and then the adults are saying you're going to lose. No, kid, you suck, or my kid's going to beat you. And you're sitting there baiting these grown men.
Well, so, okay. At the very beginning of it, I think I talk about this in the book. the very, very beginning of it is someone tells me, hey, all these people are talking about you on these message boards. And I said, what are those? Right. This is like it's probably the year 2000. We'll say 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. So it's my sophomore year of high school. Everyone's talking about you. I said, what are message boards? I don't know what those are. Right. So someone gives me the URL, right? And I go on there, and all these people are talking all this shit about these two dudes beating me at state. The state is the next week, right? So it was Saturday. It was Saturday. We had sectionals, and then at this tournament, everyone's telling me about what's happening. I'm like, okay, I gotta check it out. So then I go on the forums, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna whoop his ass, and I'm gonna whoop his ass. You guys all suck, blah blah. And I just was like, I think I was like a little bit just like being myself. Like that's just how I talk,
Yeah.
And then I got this crazy blowback, but then I whooped these two dudes the next week at state. Like it was ugly.
That's so funny. And you show up to the tournament with a boombox.
Well, that was the next year. Okay, then I did a victory lap. I did a victory lap on all of them, right? Yeah. They didn't like that at all. And then so then the next couple of years, so it was my junior and senior high school, a lot of was like, hey, how do I go antagonize these people? Like, how do I ruffle their feathers? How do I do something stupid that they're going to get frustrated with? I mean, honestly, that was a big part of growing my hair out. Because if you look at my sophomore year pictures, I don't know if I got my book right here. Let me see. Hey, you guys go buy my book. Let me see if I'm going to see if I have short hair in one of these. Because like early in my life, I never, ever had longer hair. Like this one, I think is probably like, right. So that was like by 8th grade, or probably. So my hair is like really short, So a big part of it was like, I started growing my hair out and people were like, got upset about it. It's like, what's my hair? Like get lost, But then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep it up. The boombox, I'm going to keep that up. And so I did all these stupid things to antagonize these stupid people. And I kind of, it was just entertaining. It's kind of like Twitter, right? It's kind of entertaining.
What are you playing in the boombox?
What
song were you playing in the boombox? Like what kind of music?
I mean, I mean, part of it was just me. Part of it was just me. Part of it was just me listening to music, right?
Yeah.
But then part of it was I was just telling. Who did I just tell? I did a different interview earlier this week. I was telling him, do you remember that commercial where they chased people, Eye of the Tiger, with the boombox?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would do that. That was so funny. People would get so mad. I feel like I should still go do that. I was thinking about when I told them this, and I'm like, oh my God, wait, that was so much fun. Because you start chasing people with this boombox, play Eye of the Tiger, and they don't know what to do, and someone would try to run faster and get away from you, and you just chase their ass. And then someone would like turn around and you just stand there and stare at them, and just keep playing. They wouldn't know what to do, And like none of them actually like tried to punch me or anything. Like I would have assumed that would happen at some point.
Yeah.
But most people just didn't know how to do it. And I was kind of like relentless in my pursuit of this hilarious activity. That like they just didn't know what to do.
You actually also talk about Vision Quest, which I think also was the most overrated wrestling movie of all time.
It's so bad.
In fact, I talked to Shoot recently, on like the phone. We have a mutual friend. You know the guy who played Shoot?
Oh yeah, I met him at NCAAs last year.
Nice guy. But there's a scene in that movie where he gets molested. Do you remember that? And I asked him, and it was like the weirdest thing. Yeah. So he's working at like a hotel, and he brings food to someone's room, and someone's doing like a Tai Chi guy. And then he goes, oh, I wrestle. And then the guy's like, oh, and then the guy grabs his cock, and then he pushes the guy, and he runs out. Yeah, he runs out of the room. But there was no.
I only watched it one time. I don't remember this.
I asked Shoot about it. I go, why was that in the movie? Like they didn't even reference it. He basically got like fondled at a hotel.
I don't remember this at all.
Yes. Yeah, there was
what in the world?
There was a scene where he's working. Yeah, Matthew Modine is working at the hotel, and he's like trying to cut weight, and somebody orders food, and he goes to the guy's room, and the guy's doing like some kind of weird Japanese or Tai Chi, and the guy grabs his cock, he pushes the guy, he goes, beat it, and then he runs out of the room, all fucking weirded out. But they don't even, that's it. Like nothing ever happens to that guy. The guy never gets in trouble. They never arrest the guy. Like it's just, I don't know why they brought that into the movie. There was no point of, so if anyone sees, it's a very strange.
That it's so weird. I know. Freaking Hollywood.
Now Johnny Hendricks. You don't like Johnny Hendricks. You talk about him throughout the book, but you never say why.
No, you know what? I don't like him. You know what? Well, he beat me twice in high school, and I always wanted to scrap with him again, and I never got to. That's clear. But I did think the other day, like, you know what? I don't really have anything against Johnny Hendricks. I would have loved to have competed against him. I really, really did want to. But whatever. You know, I'm hoping.
But he never did anything to you. Like he just beat you. But you just always make him out to be a bad guy.
Yeah, when you're a competitor, you don't like that shit. You want to get him. Yeah, I always want to get him back, and I never got to get him back, and it really did upset me.
Well, he had been wrestling a lot longer than you. He started when he was like 4 or 5. You started when you were 12, 13.
I started at a similar age.
Oh, well, I'm trying to make excuses.
No, I started at like 5 or 6. I got serious when I was 11. Stop making excuses for me, Adam. I don't like this. Now,
I got to say, though, you said that if it wasn't for Chris Pendleton, you would have been the second best college wrestler of all time because you lost to this guy 7 out of 8 times. There was another guy that beat you. Cale Sanderson was undefeated in college, right? He never lost.
Yeah.
He was a 4-time national
Cale never lost. So he was 159-0, and I would have been 160-1.
You would have been, so he still would have beaten you by 1, but you would have been a 4-time national champion if not for Chris Pendleton, who beat you twice in the NCAAs. Now, when you first said it, I go, wait a minute, you lost your redshirt year, so do we factor that in? And then there's Dan Gable. Dan Gable, who everyone assumes is the greatest. He was a 3-time national champion because he lost his last match.
No,
so
2. He only won 2 because at that point, there was only 4. You can only do 4 years of college, and one had to be redshirt. So they actually had 3 years of NCAA tournament eligibility.
Oh, okay. So then there's the argument there. Well, what if he had won it 4 times? But yeah, I didn't even think about that, Ben.
Yeah.
Like if not for Chris Pendleton, you would have been 167-1 in college. That's insane.
160-1, yes.
160-1.
Yeah.
But the crazy part about Chris Pendleton,
I can't believe that, dude.
He's such a nice guy, by the way. He's like the nicest guy, cool guy, like very laid back, kind of like you. Like he's just a good guy. But you said that he was always able to update what you were doing, which is also baffling because you were doing shit that no one ever seen before. So
but that was my freshman sophomore year. And so that was like when the process was starting for me. Like, again, I said, if you watch me as a senior and you watch my tape as a freshman, they're relatively different things. No, I mean, I think, you know, one of the greatest minds in wrestling is John Smith, and he had John Smith in his corner. And yeah, it would just be like, you know, one match, for example, I lost 4-3 on a ride time point at Oklahoma State. And it was like, he actually rode me for a long time. He never ever tried to stay on top, really, besides that, you know. And then at the Big 12 championship match that year, he came out and like sprinted in the first period. And he got like 3 takedowns on me, you know, and then he got tired. And then I tried chasing him down. I think I lost like, I said 12-9 or somewhere in there, like 13-10, something to that effect, you know. And so it was like a different tack. It was, you know, on his part or John Smith's part, whoever was the idea, it was kind of a brilliant tactic to take, is just to kind of change it up and not present the same puzzle every time. And it did keep me guessing, and it did make me a lot better too.
You also said you were a slow starter, but you had 80 pins in the first round. Like the first period. How are you?
No, I became a fast starter. I made myself a fast starter. It took me till I was 22 to figure it out. It took me forever.
How do you become a fast starter?
But yeah, I had 18 pins in a row in the first period, which is an NCAA record. I don't know if that'll ever get touched. You know what it was, Adam? It was this. I was maybe a little bit ego, but I was heavily reliant on my conditioning. My conditioning was always great. And so I knew, okay, they're probably better in the beginning of the match. And then as the match goes on, I can wear them out and come back and I can win, you know, and that happened. So then what I realized, and this is something I try to stress to my athletes, is wrestling match is not like a sprint, okay? So if you're running, it's you versus you. So if you sprint, okay, you're going to get tired relatively quickly, okay? Right? Is that fair?
Yeah, of course.
Well, if you sprint in a wrestling match, the problem is they got to sprint with you. If they don't sprint with you, you're going to run their ass over. And it's going to be over. And you're not going to have conditioning. Okay. But if I sprint and they're able to semi-match me, okay, I have great cardio, and I know I do, right? So this is actually probably not going to work for someone who doesn't have great cardio. But if they have to match my pace, they have to sprint also. They're going to get more tired than me. So if we think of like a chart of like 100% endurance, right?
Yeah.
Well, if I go down to 80 and they go down to 75, this is a little bit of an advantage for me. But if I go down to 60 and they go down to 40, this is a big advantage for me, right? So when I started by sprinting, they were forced to sprint with me. And when they had to sprint with me, they got tired faster. Therefore, my advantage came into play earlier.
Got it.
Right. And if they weren't willing to sprint, I was just going to deck their ass, you know? So that was kind of what I figured out.
And you're sprinting while scrambling, which is probably the hardest sprint you can do because you're not even.
Well, and then obviously, yes. And then obviously I'm throwing all these things at them that they've never seen before. I have a whole bunch of unique positions that I can pin them from so they don't even realize they're in danger. So, yeah, I mean, I pinned 19 people in a row, 18 were in the first period, and then I pinned 29 people that year, which I don't want to say for certain, but I'm pretty sure that's the most in modern era of any season. 18 in a row in the first period is the best ever. And 19 in a row is the second best next to the great Dan Gable got 25. And I actually, the week before I started my streak, I played around with my food too much. And there was one kid, and if I would have started sprinting, I thought he sucked worse than he did. And he was like, I had 5 pins before it. Then I had this kid, and I beat him 19-8. But it was like he was a little scrappier than I thought he was.
Yeah.
But the next week I pinned him because I was like, okay, I'm gonna freaking kill this dude. So I would have had 25 in a row. I would have tied Gable if I would have pinned that dude.
It's okay. I don't think anyone's counting.
Really unfortunate. Right?
I feel like you're like the wrestling version of Forrest Gump. In some way. By the way, you never talk about.
Hey, I got 5 minutes because I'm going to Bellator tonight.
I have so many. We gotta do a part two.
My
we
friend,
gotta do a part two because I have so many more questions.
Okay, we can do a part two. I love chatting with you.
You never talk about how you got Amy. You have a beautiful wife. You never did. Your wife is your wife's a 10. She's a 10.
I got.
First of all,
game,
how do you keep her? Because
I agree.
How do you keep someone that? Because my wife's like, I obsess over comedy, and then I'm obsessed over this, and then I coach wrestling. My wife's like, you're not coaching this next year. It's an hour drive. You don't get paid barely shit. Blah blah. Like you do more shit than I do. How does your wife not go crazy? How did you pick her up? How did you get her? Did you get laid before her? I mean, talk to me.
Yeah, so I would say, despite that I'm not that great looking of a guy, well, we have a great marriage. So, our marriage is awesome. But probably say prior to Amy, because it's the same thing as wrestling, Adam. It is. I don't tell kids this because it's not my objective to help them hook up with chicks, because I feel like that's something an adult should not do. But I'm gonna tell you because you're an adult. Although you're married, so your wife might get mad if you try these tactics. It's just like shooting a single leg. Okay, so you shoot a single leg the first time, you don't know how the hell to get the takedown, right?
Right.
And so maybe you try something, and you're like, oh, that didn't work. And then you try something else and said that didn't work. And then by sheer trying and failing, you start to figure out what works. This is the same with talking to women, right? You're in the beginning, you're scared and you think you're going to fail no matter what. And then at some point, well, not everyone gets here, but at some point you're like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot my shot. So you go start talking to them. And then, you're like, maybe the first time it doesn't go well. And then the second time it doesn't go well.
So you
and
begged
like, oh, you know what? They liked it when I made them laugh.
Before Amy, you got laid off. So before Amy, you were a stud. Is what you're trying to say. Because if you shot all those singles on people, by the time
I had a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend for a while in college, but college was a great time, Adam.
Wow! Oh, wow, that's good because I assumed that you never got. But based on your book, I'm like, this dude never got. This dude never got any pussy because.
Why? Because I didn't talk about girls.
You didn't mention.
I did just think about wrestling. So.
Yeah, you didn't mention one thing in the book.
I was just thinking about most. I was thinking about mostly wrestling, but I did.
Yeah.
Did have time for some women. Yes. Okay. My wife is lovely, and we have a really good marriage.
By the way, I always wondered what after the Jake Paul debacle, which I want to talk about that because you hired K9 Bundridge, a guy who's known for having no technique, to train you in boxing. So
I know he was freaking wild. No one else offered. I didn't know that's what he's known for, but After knowing that, he was wild. I could tell you some stories about K9. I mean, a couple of days I had to be like, K9, you just told me like 47 different things. Like, tell me 3. Let me get 3 down. Then we'll work on the other 44. You just told me 47 different things to do. What are we doing here?
He was on The Contender as a guy that he was on The Contender show, and his whole thing was this guy looks like the greatest fighter ever. He's got crazy power, but has no technique. Like, his technique was awful. They were all laughing at him.
Yeah,
and that's the guy you hired to train you. Like, that would be the last guy.
I love it. I had no idea. I had no idea.
So, like,
he was the only one that offered. So I had a few other people, but yeah. So wait, let me answer your other question. I have to go because I'm going to Bellator today. I'm taking the train. Me and my wife are taking the train to Chicago to watch my buddy, not human, Jordan Newman. He's fighting. He's gonna be a killer. He's 4-0 already, trying to go 5-0 tonight. Wait, so what was your question again?
Oh,
you got me distracted.
I was wondering
about my wife. My wife's hot. I love her.
Asked you what she said to you after the Jake Paul thing, because she said something
after what she said. She said,
Yes.
she said, hey, she said, did you realize Justin Bieber just opened for you?
Yeah, and then you said, let's go get the check. That was the funniest, because I
said, fuck this, let's go get the check.
That was the best. Like, that was that was when I'm like, dude, that's when you know the person's your soulmate, because she wasn't like, are you okay? She wasn't like, man, is everything all right? She's like, Justin Bieber just opened up for you. Like, and then you said,
I know, right?
And you said, let's go pick up $1 million. That was
yeah, because I was so ready to get. I was the Triller experience was they didn't have everything buttoned up. It was like every other day something different changed. It was just I was just so ready to be done with the bullshit. I actually enjoyed like training. I enjoyed that part of it, and I enjoyed fighting. But Triller was stressful, man. It was something different every 2 days.
How many boxing sparring rounds did you do before that fight?
I was sparring twice a week, so I don't know. I probably didn't spar the first few weeks. I was just so far out of shape. I mean, that was the other thing that kind of sucked is obviously I didn't give myself the best opportunity for best performance because I had hip surgery and I couldn't freaking work out and I was super fat when I started training. So it took a few weeks to kind of like even get back into decent shape. But I don't know. I was sparring twice a week, so I probably sparred 8 weeks. I started 11 weeks before. I don't know, probably like 15 times, something like that.
So you're boxing a guy.
Right. Hey, Adam,
sparring every day for like 3 years, and you spar 15 times.
Yeah.
And one of your sparring.
I was hoping he was a pussy and he wasn't very good.
Okay, we're gonna go back. This is amazing. I would love to do a part
next time. We get to. I promise. Part 2. Yes. Hold on. I don't know if I can do it next week because next week is
Thanksgiving.
Next week's gonna be wild.
The week after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'm traveling. I'm going to All-Star Classic. I got to go.
All right.
Part 2. We'll do
Part 2, because I have a list of 400 more questions. So, but thank you. Enjoy your weekend,
All
man.
right, let's go. Bye.
Take care.